things in mind. The first is across the continent to grow networks like the Lagos Angel Network, to support syndicates that can become networks, and most importantly also to support the individual angel investors like the people in this room. That is his first mandate, is to look at that. The second is to provide capacity development to those members of these networks and to the networks themselves. So to help people understand the process around angel investing, everything from what should a term sheet look like, convertibles, how do we value a startup, stop and directing start entrepreneur. What people within can access what doing to be sure that my management style. These are all challenges. Other people's funds. Angels are actually managing and looking after their own funds. That is the beginning of the difference. Of ABAN's continent. For example, if that help angel investing. Given the dearth of taxation in Africa, we're looking at things like Ghana, where there's actually a fund of funds that have been created by the government, allowing for co-investment with angels in terms of matching funds. So these are some of the policy frameworks ABAN is looking to engage with governments across the continent and policymakers across the continent in. So ABAN is the trade association or the network of networks for angel networks on the continent. The Lagos Angel Network, surprise, surprise, as well as the Ghana Angel Network, the Cameroonian Angel Network. We've got 2 networks in Kenya, 3 in South Africa. Oh my God, I forgot. There are like 14 countries currently members of the Africa Business Angel Network, and an increasing number. Yesterday night, I was with the Case Foundation for dinner, and I had the privilege of meeting Pune, who runs the Africa Angel Network. And there's been a big debate online, for those of you who follow, as to why do you have the Africa Angel Network and the Africa Business Angel Network? There is a difference. The Africa Business Angel Network does not invest in entrepreneurs directly. The networks that belong to it do. The Africa Angel Network actually invests directly and has co-invested with the Case Foundation and others in startups across the continent. And I'm happy to announce that they have agreed, the Africa Angel Network, as of last night, became a member of the Africa Business Angel Network. So that solves that particular. Now, I said the second mandate was to develop capacity, which is to give people in this room and the likes the kind of capability and the skills to discern who to support, what to support, how to go about it. You know, the kind of skills that Dr. was saying, we're at beginning stages. We've only been doing this for what, a year and a half tops. We've done a few transactions under our belts, I mean as a network. As individual investors, I'm quite sure most of you in this room at some time or the other have invested. In order for us to do it properly, we thought, well, you know what? There's no point skimping. We've had the privilege of a book, which I commend. Can I borrow a copy? Just to share it. David Rose book. We had the privilege last year in Helsinki and later on, earlier on this year in Eindhoven, okay, to actually interact and talk at length with David Rose, who wrote the book on angel investing. He's the founder of the New York Angels, which the Lagos Angel Network is being fashioned after. So as a member of the network, you get a copy of this. But like Dr. said, reading is easy. It's actually listening to somebody who has done it, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, as they say in the parlance. Now, I have a piece here that says, meeting a telecom czar at an investors meet is not out of place. We have within us the person who is actually going to be taking this class, so you don't have to listen to my war voice, you know, because even me, I'm getting tired of listening to myself. She is not just the president of the European Business Angel Network. She's also one of the founders, if not the founder, of the Sophia Angels Network, which Sophia Antipolis, I got it right, which is in Nice, the most beautiful part of France, which is where she lives, with her husband, who is a senior ambassador. Why am I bringing that up? Candace, please take a Bible. I've never heard of anybody else that has got a Nigerian visa in 20 minutes. Please, I mean, clap for her. It was like she was sitting in the lobby waiting. You know our queues at the embassy, you know? And she goes outside, makes a phone call to her husband, who's a senior ambassador of over 30 years. Phone call to phone call, 20 minutes later, somebody saying, Miss Johnson, I will make you go collect your visa. And here she is. We have to thank you for coming. Now, I will leave you to Google and read about Candace Johnson, but let me just share a few little things that I know. I was shocked just last night, to find out that just like Steve Casu's next door founded America Online, Candace was the one behind Europe Online. Yeah. She is also the entrepreneur behind the Astra Satellite Network, which runs most of Europe till today. Sorry? And here, okay, and Nigeria, okay, till today in terms of a backbone, and it goes on and on and on like that. Okay, so without much ado, what we are all here for is to listen to a masterclass on angel investing, best practices. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mrs. Candace Johnson.
Okay, so actually, first of all, it is absolutely delightful to be here. And, you know, Dotun and Collins and Tomi, we've become such good friends, really since last November when they came to Helsinki after the vice president of EBAN had come to, please come in, yes, thank you, hi, had come to demo Africa and really said, hey, you know, EBAN would love to work with an African business angel network. Also, I do have to thank my husband, but I have to thank Tomi because Tomi came to my home and we had a delightful 2 days together and my husband just loved Tomi. And so when I called him up, I said, I said, please, Tomi is waiting for me. You have to give me this visa. So it was an all-round effort. What I wanted to do was actually because we're going to kind of have this masterclass in 2 parts. And so, since we are on the continent of storytelling, I wanted to share some of my stories with you from my entrepreneurial background, but with an angel perspective, and you will see that. So hopefully, we're going to be getting the signal.
Sure.
Yeah, good.
This is the-
This is the beeper, okay.
Give me a moment.
Okay. Oh, but it didn't, because I didn't. It didn't. Okay, so while we're waiting, first of all, how many of you have already made investments? Okay, well, that's fantastic. Okay, and how many of you are also entrepreneurs? Very typical. Okay, and how many of you, or what, and how many of your investments have been in tech? Great. Okay, wonderful. So, and how many of you have made money with your investments? Okay, that's actually very good. Okay, so as I said, I just wanted to share a couple of stories with you. Indeed, one thing that I have really been impressed to see, I was in Nairobi last week with Tomi and Colin. And I came back, for a reason to Europe, and then I came back again. And the reason that I did is because I was so impressed with the African entrepreneurs. Because usually I give this speech and I say, what are the world's problems? The world's problems are energy, education, logistics, etc. Eradicating poverty. Very few entrepreneurs in Europe are focusing on those problems. But when I came to Nairobi and I met the African entrepreneurs, they are focusing on these problems. And that is the 21st century problem. And their solutions are very innovative and very exciting. And I've always called Africa the communicating continent, the coming continent, the connected continent. But I had no idea about truly the innovation and the entrepreneurship about tackling these problems. An entrepreneur provides solutions. An angel investor provides experience, expertise, network, and oh yes, some money. Okay, but that's the last. And angel investors throughout the world, I was just over talking with Steve and Jean because indeed we've done a lot of fun things together. We were talking about quote unquote impact investing. And as president of EBAN, oh, by the way, what time is it? Can somebody lend me their watch? I promise you that I will give it back. Okay, you can, I'll take it just in case I don't want to stay on time. Okay, so thank you. I do promise I'll give it back. We were talking about quote unquote impact investing. Well, as a matter of fact, and I, as president of EBAN, I'm known as saying impact investing and angel investing are the same. They really are. And so we should not make any differences because these are the problems that we need to solve today. Now, hi, how are you? I'm Candace, and nice to meet you. Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about my family because that's kind of nice too. So my dad was very poor. My father was a child with a depression. And he came to become the general of the United States Air Force in charge of military telecommunications. So that's how I got into the telecommunications and into satellites. And So, we started investing already. I mean, he lived the American dream. He came from nothing. He was so poor that when they went to school and he came home and he said, Mother, I have a problem. We're supposed to give something to the poor child in my class, and I don't have anything to give. Well, of course, my dad was the poor child. And yet, my dad was so positive in his life. And when he came to be a general, and then he became a serial entrepreneur, and then he became a venture capitalist and angel investor, we learned how to invest at age 16, 17. We were investing. We were, we would have a certain amount of money, and my dad would give us, money, and we would invest in companies, usually the companies that we started, or we got shares, so we were always investing. Another thing that my dad said, if a country does not invest in its next generation, it will have a lost generation. And my father was one of the founders of the Israeli venture capital community. He was invited to Israel by Chaim Herzog, the president of Israel. And he went to Israel. He'd never been there before. We are not of the Jewish faith, but he was very well known as an entrepreneur and as an investor. And he went to the kibbutzes, and he looked at the people there, and they were hardworking. And this was in 1990. This was when the wall fell down. And so all of the scientists of the Jewish faith from Russia, who had been working in the secret cities, were now allowed to leave Russia. They had a brain drain. It was the stupidest thing that Russia ever did to let those scientists leave, because they all came to Israel. And then my father had to help them change from being military scientists to becoming entrepreneurs for peacetime. And so he put into place an angel investor network and to mentor these scientists who had never even known about a market economy. And all of a sudden, they were being mentored. They were being mentored by people who were not scientists, who were not technologists, but who knew how to make money. And then he did another thing. He went to the government and he said, look, because in 1990, it's hard to believe, it's not that very far away, Israelis did not invest in their own people. They invested everywhere but their own people. And my father said, I have to figure out a way to get Israelis to invest in their own people. And so what did he do? He created the Yosma Fund. And the Yosma Fund did the following. If you invest in, and they set up various funds, if you invest in a startup in Israel, and within 5 years, you have not received an IRR, internal rate of return, of 25%, we will give you 80% of your investment back. Okay? So that was, and it couldn't be the government, but it was the Leumi Bank, which was 100% shares owned by the Israeli government, but it was not the government, it was a private bank. And so everybody said, oh my goodness gracious, this is too good to be true. Well, you know what happened 5 years afterwards? They had an IRR of 37%, okay? But it unleashed the excitement and the wrong perception of risk. People said, oh, we don't have to risk. We don't have to risk any money. We can just invest. And they did invest in their next generation. Now, I did show this everyone. I'll show it this afternoon too. But talking about inspiring people. So when I was 5 in 1957, I received that little toy Sputnik to put on my satellite tree. 1957 was the year of the first Sputnik. And so every year, and Santa Claus was inside, so every year that Sputnik is on my satellite, on my Christmas tree, because I like satellites. So now, you know, Dotu talked about passion. And he said, we all have passion. Well, you know what? Throw the book away, because I think passion is the most important thing, particularly for angel investing. And it's passion to make a difference. It's passion to bring about change. And it takes a lot of work. And so in 1983, and oh, by the way, you all have such an amazing chance here in Africa. I mean, I've already met in Nairobi. Well, I already I matched the investment from the Global Business Angel Network with the money that the Case Foundation had given. But you know, we found some fabulous companies to invest in. You all have such an amazing opportunity here to invest in great companies. And by the way, I'm going to ask every single one of you, do not invest in a company that is the neighborhood store or an e-commerce store or whatever. Invest in something that is going to change the world, that is going to make an impact, and that is scalable, okay? That is what angel investing is about. It is absolutely a joint venture in all senses of the word. Don't, you know, as Tomi and I were talking last night, if he hears one more e-commerce pitch, he's gonna go off, okay? Well, I, as president of EBAN, I've already made agreements with the ESA, the European Space Agency, with the ERC, the European Research Council, and, you know, I was so blown away by the companies that I saw in Nairobi, you know, last week, because they were talking about education, about energy, about agriculture, about fishing, the problems that we have today. So this is exciting. So in 1983, Luxembourg, my dear darling husband's country, had a problem. And the problem was they had a steel company that was going bonkers, they had a finance company that was going bonkers, and they had a broadcasting company that was going bonkers. And so I looked, and so because my husband is very cute and nice, and so is Luxembourg, I said, I have to help Luxembourg. Now here I am, I'm 30 years old, you know, and I say, I have to help my husband's country figure out the problems to create a new economy. And so because I had grown up with satellites, I said to the Prime Minister, I said, well, you know, you can do a satellite system. And because I never ever let boundaries stop me, I said, we'll make the satellite cover all of Europe. Now in 1983, did Europe look like this? No. There was a line right down the middle. And yet, satellites are blind to boundaries. And I, as a young entrepreneur, was blind to boundaries. So I put the satellite together that would cover all of Europe. Now there was one problem. By the way, oh, this is me. This is when we actually launched our satellite 5 years later. This is the Grand Duke of Luxembourg. This is the Prime Minister. There's my cute husband. You know, also women in the room, please look. Unfortunately, the only woman at the time. But, you know, if I hadn't been there, they wouldn't have been there at all, okay? So, you know, the women does win. Okay, so, but in 1983, this, by the way, is in Peru, launching our first satellite. In 1988, 5 years later, that was not very, very long. Particularly when you consider that in 1983, there were no private telcos in Europe. There were no private television companies in Europe. It was not allowed to have a private satellite, and it was not allowed to have private satellite dishes. Now, how in the world are we going to get money? How are we going to get financing for a private satellite company that was basically against the law, but was going to bring freedom of choice to every single European, that was going to create trillions, 30 trillion euros worth of business, untold of jobs, millions of jobs in satellite manufacturing, in satellite dish manufacturing, in advertising, in content production, in conditional access, in cable, in mobile, okay? And was going to bring freedom of choice to everybody who had never had the opportunity to look at more than 1 or 2 television channels in their own language. It was this gentleman right here, Count Roland de Kergolay. And Count Roland de Kergolay was a European Commission ambassador to the United States. Now, in the United States, it's very funny. Everybody thinks that nobility is impoverished because we had all of these people, who came from, they were exiled or refugees from places that, kings and queens, that had kings and queens, and so I always thought everybody was poor. So his wife comes to me one day and says, Candace, Count Roland de Kergolay, needs a job because he had just resigned or retired from being the ambassador of the European Commission to the United States. And I said, oh my gosh, okay, well, we're doing this satellite project, and I'll ask the Prime Minister if he can help us. So I go and I ask the Prime Minister of Luxembourg, and I say, could Count Roland de Kergolay help us? He goes, Candace, I know him. He was in the Werner plan, the Euro, the pre-runner of the Euro. He was the secretary in my group. Oh, he's a good guy. We can have him. I said, wonderful. We will have him. He came all of the time. He called up all of his friends. He never, ever, ever put in an invoice for his expenses. He never, ever, ever asked for a salary. I said, Roland, please, something's wrong here. You have to do this. Oh, Candace, we'll see. 1 year later, after having paid Goldman Sachs a fortune, they come to me, Goldman Sachs. I did not choose Goldman Sachs. I would never have chosen Goldman Sachs. Anyway, Goldman Sachs comes to me, and they knew it. Which is why they came to me. They said, Candace, we have to thank you. I said, why? And they said, well, you have brought us our first investment. I go, no, I have not. No. It's just me. I have not brought my first investment. Oh, yes, you have. I said, well, who is it? They said, Count de Kergolay. I go, Count de Kergolay doesn't have any money. He needs a job. They said, oh, no. He has brought in 1 million, and he has brought in all of his family to invest in this new European adventure. And of course, his family were princes and counts and dukes and duchesses from all over Europe. And they had guaranteed that, whereas he was putting in 1 million, that they would put in 10 million. At this gentleman's 70th birthday, I was invited, and I sat next to him on his right-hand side. And I said, Roland, how in the world am I sitting at your right-hand side? Because, there are all of these kings and queens and dukes and duchesses, and I'm sitting at your right-hand side. I said, Candace. In the meantime, that Astra satellite became the world's largest satellite system. And his family, very important, always followed every capital raise. Their holding that they still have today is worth 2 billion euros. 2 billion. But so at that little party, when we'd gone on IPO, we were #1 in the world, and I was sitting next to his right, He said, you know, Candace, because of you, all of my family were able to put roofs on their chateaus and to make their patrimoine wonderful. Now, this is a beautiful story. It all started with this gal. And just because it's not only the story, it's not only the fact that, and by the way, ever after, whenever I want to start something new, the DeCaroli family always invests in me because they know that they can count on a good return. But it's also the track, it's also the journey. So here we were, we became the world's largest satellite system. And why did we do that? Because we said we cannot just become Europe's #1 satellite system, we have to become the world's largest satellite system. And we also were the world's first Occidental satellite to be launched by a Russian launcher in 1995, April 9th, 1995. You can see way up on top there, it has the Astra logo. For somebody such as myself, talk about impact investing. My dad used to come to my 5th grade class and tell everybody, one day we will have satellites for communication, for information, for education, for entertainment. And when we have wars, we will have wars in space, and we will have peace on Earth. And so doing that with the Russians, with an American-built satellite, a European company, was very exciting. And those are some of the things that angel investors, can be part of the journey and can believe and can really make it happen. So, I'm going to tell you some other investment stories because I think it's important. And the second part will be about the due diligence of the shareholding and et cetera. But, you've got to get the vision and you've got to know that you can do great things. So my second company was started in 1989, Teleport Europe, and it was to bring not only satellite television, which Astra did, but to bring satellite telecommunications. And here again, this is interesting because if you are facing investment situations where perhaps you as an angel investor are not wanted, you have to stand up for your rights, okay? So I had with me, when I first started this company, the second company, I had EON, Matra, MAN, RWE Salzgitter, and British Aerospace. But it was my idea. I knew how to do it. They didn't. And they said, oh, fine, we'll do this, we'll invest, but you will do what, you will become the managing director. And I said, oh, no, this was in Germany. I said, no, I'm 35 now, 36. So I'm not going to become the managing director. I'm going to be an investor and sit at the table with you. Now, 1989, Germany, they didn't like women. they didn't like Americans. They didn't like American women who thought that they knew better than they. And they never had, at that point, a private investor sit at the table with them. It took me 8 lawyers to put together what finally ended up being me sitting at the table with them as an investor. Now listen to this. So here again, and I made it become Europe's largest transport satellite telecommunications company. Okay, so now we're getting to the exit, right? Okay. Remember, whenever you do an investment, you have to think about the exit. And if ever you are doing an investment and you're not thinking about the exit, there is a problem, okay? We are all at the point today that if you are investing, you have to think about the exit. Am I going to be able to exit this company with an X return on my investment? Now, since my husband was the ambassador, come on in, or no, okay. So since my husband was the ambassador of Luxembourg at this point to Germany. He had been the ambassador of Luxembourg to the United States, where he met and married me. And he was the ambassador of Luxembourg to Russia when we launched this. But I said, I will not take any money, but I have to have all of the rights of a shareholder. And so, hi, how are you? Good. And so the deal that we put together, hello, come on in. It's so nice to see you. The deal that we put together was that I would have my shareholding, but I could never sell it. So now, these people, RWE, Salzgitter, EON, MAN, Matra, British Aerospace, they get an offer from Loral Space Systems, to buy all of Teleport Europe. And they forgot to tell Loral that I owned 1% of the company. So finally, one day I get this telephone call. Miss Johnson, Frau Johnson, please come to Düsseldorf. We would like to see you. So at this point, I didn't have any money. I was starting my third startup. All of it was going there. But I went out and I bought this really neat, fake Chanel suit. And and I looked very rich, very rich. And so I go there. Miss Johnson, we are being offered X amount of money for our shares, but we will offer you basically 10 times what my share is worth if you will please sell to us. I said, well, no, I cannot do that because it said that I could never ever sell my shares. It was to me, and only when I die do the shares go back to the company. So then they said, well, we'll offer you 20 times. I said, no, it says here that I am not allowed to do that. I cannot do that. So they had to go back to Loral, and they had to say, well, we didn't tell you the whole truth. We actually only own 99% of the company. And Loral says, who owns the 1%? They were really quite upset. And so they meekly said, this woman named Candace Johnson. Loral goes, Candace Johnson? Of satellite fame? They go, yes. They go, we like Candace Johnson. She can stay with us. She'll own 1% and we'll own 99%. Now I tell this story because you're always told that you should leave the company, but actually I never do. As an angel investor, I like the companies. I like the companies that I invest in, and I stay with them. And you know, you have to make that decision yourself. This is again not in the book, right? You have to make your decision. Do you want to continue that story? Do you want to keep on helping the company whenever it needs you? And maybe take some money out sometime. You know, so I always like to stay with the company. And when we went to Teleport Europe and to the team to tell them that there was a new owner, do you know what? And the team was German, was Czech, was Polish, was French, was British. They all came to me and they said, Candace, you didn't sell. You stayed with us. And talk about just a happy day. Happy day. Now, indeed, Tomi talked about Europe Online. Well, the story's a little bit different, Tomi, from what Steve very generously and graciously explained to you. So, you know, by this time, this is my third investment and third company. And the entrepreneurial part I'll talk about this afternoon. But in 1993, I decided that Europe needed to get online. And so I called it Europe Online. Unbeknownst to me, that my friend, Steve Case, from Punahou, where we all went to school in Honolulu with President Obama, had started AOL, America Online. And actually, Europe Online because the World Wide Web had just come the year before with Tim Berners-Lee, we were the world's first internet-based online service. Here again, you know, people talk about greed, and that is one thing that can kill, a venture, okay? And so what happened here again, we had fabulous investors. We had Borda, we had Pearson, the Financial Times Group, we had Macra, we had AT&T, I mean, it was just amazing. But these people, instead of coming together and building something together, they said, no, we want to build, and then we will split. We will split it out. Instead of having Europe online, we'll have France online, we'll have Germany online, we'll have UK online, we'll have Italy online, etc. And as a result, they let the company go down. And each of them took out from the company what they had learned and started their own Borda online, France online, UK online. And they let this company die. So I went back and I bought the company out of bankruptcy for, at the time, 50K euros. Then I built it up again. And we had Rockefeller, and we had Société Générale, and I mean, it was just amazing. And we had 4 satellite transponders, and we were bringing internet to everybody in Europe. They then decided that they should hire as CEO, a man CEO, and that I should be put aside. Even though, here again, story about investing, story about shareholding, I had 60% of the company. I had every single shareholder, every single team member get shares. I had not paid attention. I had 47% after I had given all of the team members, you know, what's going to happen, the shares. And so then they did a hostile takeover, and they kicked me out because I only had 47%. I didn't have 51%. So make certain that you're on the team that has at least 51%, and that the shareholding agreements foresee that major decisions need 51%. Or if they need 66%, make certain that you also have part of that 66%. So they kicked me out, thinking, oh, you know, we need to have management, not realizing that they needed passion. And within 6 months, the company went bankrupt again. So I went back and I bought it out of bankruptcy again. But this time, not for 50K, I had to buy it for 500K. And so, you know, finally, I built it up again. And in the meantime, things had gone on. The window of opportunity had pretty much left, even though we had done some amazing things. And so now I do keep the URL, and I keep it, you know, for me, and I didn't let anybody else come. Because they didn't have the same vision for the company that I had. And, you know, alignment of visions with shareholders is really important. Just to see if we can't close this a little bit. Okay. I'll just speak louder. It's fine. No, they're having a nice time. Can everybody hear me? Okay. So, just these are kind of some of the fun stories, or not so fun. And you know, here again, one thing when you're doing your angel investments, if something does happen, in Europe, they do not have what they call Chapter 11. So if somebody goes bankrupt, it goes bankrupt, and there's nothing you can do. In the United States, they do have Chapter 11, and I don't know what the bankruptcy laws are here, but if you have an opportunity to have a bankruptcy, Chapter 11, you should definitely have it. Iridium, I worked with Iridium, and it went bankrupt too. And not because of me, I came and helped buy it out of bankruptcy with the Saudis, and actually, of all things, the Bin Laden group. We also did a deal then with Boeing to get it back. So that's another thing. If you go bankrupt, it doesn't mean the end of the world. Just, go and keep on going. Find the value that you had invested in and start another company. Because losing value and losing infrastructure and all of the money that you have invested is only bad if you stay on that bankruptcy. But if you can get other people to come together and to say, okay, let's start again, let's invest again. It's like getting married a second time. It does, it's love and faith over experience. But usually the rewards are very good. And Iridium, same thing here, they're doing very, very well. So I want to talk a little bit now about some of the companies that I'm investing in as an angel, and also to debunk some of the myths that you have about being very rich, okay? How many people have heard of Raspberry Pi? Excellent, excellent, okay. So 4 years ago, when Raspberry Pi got started, I went to the two founders, Jack Lang and Herman Hauser. Herman Hauser, by the way, is one of the biggest angel investors in the world. He's the founder of ARM Holdings. And when Acorn went bankrupt in the 1980s, he founded ARM Holdings, which is the middleware in all of your mobile phones and all of your smartphones. He founded ARM Holdings and has become a very large angel investor. So this angel investment, which is basically what he did when he started Raspberry Pi, I said, look, at the time I was doing a lot of work in the Middle East. And I said, I would like to have Raspberry Pi in the Arabic language. So what we did, I paid, do you know how much I paid to put the entire programming, coding software language for Raspberry Pi into Arabic? Okay, 2,500 euros. 2,500 euros. Now, what happened is 1 year later, we are in Lebanon. We're having Raspberry Pi Day. This is the telecoms minister. This is the education minister of Lebanon. And they are deciding, as a result of seeing Raspberry Pi and how it enables kids to learn how to program and to code, they are they're putting Raspberry Pi into all of the schools in Lebanon. In addition, UNICEF has decided to put the Raspberry Pi in our program that we started, Youth to Youth, which is 10-year-old kids teaching other 10-year-old kids how to code and program, into all of the refugee camps, the Syrian refugee camps in Lebanon and in Jordan. Now that was with a 2,500 euro investment. And it was with students from the MBA where I teach, paying PayPal and buying the Raspberry Pis, which cost $25, and 10-year-old kids teaching other kids how to code and program, okay? So an angel investor, to make a difference, does not have to be rich, okay? And just to show you some other, now this is something very exciting for all of you here. When I was in Nairobi, I met a group of African women. By the way, Rebecca Enachong, how many of you know Rebecca? Okay, so Rebecca was very excited because she is doing work with Raspberry Pi, and she would like to now invest to get Raspberry Pi put into Swahili, okay? So this is a huge opportunity for African Business Angel Network, for Lagos Angel Network, to invest in a project to put Raspberry Pi into Swahili and to your other languages, and to get it out throughout all of Africa. And instead of having people learning how to weave, teach people, young kids, how to code and to program. When I was talking with Rebecca and some other women, I was telling them about what we have done in the Pacific. So in the Pacific, we got, you see, all of these islands, they do not have internet connectivity. And so we said, okay, we will help them by getting satellite and putting internet connectivity into all of the islands. So what did we do? We went to all of the women in all of these islands, and we created Oceania Women's Network Satellite, okay? Some of the women have invested $500. Some have invested $5,000. Some of them have invested $50,000. Some of them have invested $500,000. But all together, we, Oceania Women's Network Satellite, we are now the largest shareholders of Pacific. And we did this is kind of confidential here, so please just keep it for yourself. We did this a year and a half ago when we made this investment. In the meantime, there was another round, which was 2.5 times. And now the company, 18 months later, is doing so well that we have 4 offers of being bought, okay? And that at about 6 times the multiple. So what does this say? It says you don't have to be rich. You do have to work together. So what Tomi's always talking about, the collective, you, by so doing, you can make great investments in infrastructure. So what did I learn in Africa? That you need to have infrastructure. Infrastructure is a fantastic investment. You get together and build roads. Get together and do private airlines. Get together and do private satellites, okay? Change the world, make it better. And the rewards are, think big. I'm always telling everybody, think big. You don't have to invest in the store around the corner. And as a result of this story, when I told it to the African women that I was talking about, we have decided to create the African Women's Satellite Network. And so we will be putting together a consortium, an investment consortium, with women from all over Africa and the African Business Angel Network to invest in the African Women's Satellite Network. Now let me also, just for a moment, good. Okay, I've got 2 minutes and we can go out and have coffee, right? So what is exciting about this? This is scalable. Every single woman who invested, and it just so happened because women don't get to maybe invest as much as men. Every single woman. So our satellite is bringing connectivity to all of these islands, which could not be at all connected by a fiber optic. And every investor is also starting their own business based on the connectivity, be it e-health, be it education, be it hotels, be it processing, be it government services, be it public safety, okay? Because indeed, you know, one of the problems, particularly in the islands, is that with climate change, people will be losing their habitats. And yes. So, you know, I'm gonna end here and just say, angel investing is not angel investing. It is putting your money where your mouth is. It's an opportunity to really make a difference. And yes, there are some skills and things that you can learn about. And by the way, you figured out, I do know telecoms. I'm terrible at finance. And so the fact that I'm investing always together with other people who bring other things to the game. So that you're doing it in a network, you're doing it in a syndicate, and that every single person is bringing their expertise and their network to the combined investment. This is what is truly exciting. So we'll talk about that after the coffee break, and I'll show you some of the things that we are doing that, you know, inspired you to make great angel investments, to come together, to invest in your next generation, and to be sustainable. Because if you do not get a return on your angel investment, you will not continue to be able to invest. And that is very bad. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Could you give Candace 1 minute? All those, the second part will now go more into the technical part. I don't know if there are any questions you'd like to ask Candace now. Questions, comments on this part?
Yeah. Morning, everybody. My name is Gerald Ilukwe. There's something I wanted to clarify when you were talking about if the investment doesn't, when you talk about bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Okay. When you said like was basically don't quit. Did you mean don't quit the organization or don't quit investing? Because
Yeah. So, you know, bankruptcy is something as an angel investor that you have to deal with, okay? And, you know, actually we say that angel investors usually invest when there is a company, when there is a product, and when there are first revenues, okay? So it's not the riskiest, actually, Tomi. The riskiest are the incubators, and there usually it is government money that is investing in those incubators because the failure rate there is probably 100 to 1. The failure rate, people say 3 out of 10 will be superstars, 2 will be okay, 5 will lose in angel investing. To be honest, that's not the case. And that is why also investing with in syndicates and other groups is very important. Having a good portfolio is very important. And if you're lucky then, you may, instead of losing 90% of your money, you may really have a chance to make, to double or triple your money if it's done well. And it can now be done well. But still, bankruptcy is a problem. So what my feeling is that usually, so the team wasn't good, the founder wasn't good, but usually there is a way, even if you don't have Chapter 11, there is a way that the company doesn't have to go bankrupt, okay? So you can, cut all of the staff, which means that, when you're first investing, you want to make certain that they don't have too many staff, that they can be, fired if necessary. You can park the company with another company, maybe it's a client, while you're trying to get the finances back, etc. If after having done all of that, you still go bankrupt, then try and secure some of the assets, okay? And then you can have here again, depending on bankruptcy laws, but usually you can have a friendly person who is willing to put together an investment consortium and to buy the assets, so an asset acquisition, and to start the company again. Now, sometimes it's not worth it to start, and so you just let it go, and you cut your losses and you go on to the next company. That for sure is very important, okay? But when you're doing big things like this and that are concerning infrastructure, you usually actually do have a lot of assets. And so even if you were to go bankrupt, it's good to try and at least do an asset acquisition. Yeah.
Hi, Ngozi Dozie here. In your experience, have you found the best deals have come out through one or two angels leading the deal, if you like, or by consensus?
Okay, so, lead, follow, or get out of the way, okay? And what usually happens in the best deals that I have invested in, or that I have been the result of an investment, is first of all, you invest with people that you know and that you trust, okay? This is absolutely key. And because what usually happens here again in these syndicates, etc., is that one of us will have been working with a young entrepreneur maybe for 2 or 3 years. This is not something that we just look at and say no, because you've got to know the team. We have these discussions. Is it the jockey? Is it the horse? Or is it the trainer? So the jockey is the entrepreneur, the horse is the company, and the trainer is, of course, the angel investor. And most trainers or angel investors will tell you they're betting on the team. They're betting on the jockey, on the entrepreneur. And that takes time. So if you have a friend who has been working with an entrepreneur for 2 or 3 years, has been mentoring them, has been coaching them, and then says, he's ready or she is ready now to bring her or him to my new angel investment network. First of all, that person has a tremendous amount of responsibility. They have pride. They have put their money into the company already. Many of us in my Sophia Business Angels Network, we do not allow anybody to come and present unless the angel, one of our member angels, has put money in already, okay? Because we're not here about getting commissions for getting money. We are here about bringing other people, about sharing great deals. And so what you do is you then have your lead investor, who is usually the person who has been working with the entrepreneur, who knows the subject area very well. Why is that important? Because you need to have a network. You need to have people who can call and say, okay, I am, if I call anybody in the satellite industry and say that I think this company is good, I can assure you, they will get the door open for them. It may not stay open, because my mother said you always have to, we can help you get the door open, you have to keep it open. But still, and by the way, I would never, ever, ever call anybody in the satellite industry unless I knew that that person could keep the door open, okay? That's another thing. So you have your subject matter expert, and that person is usually on the board. And she or he then is representing the other angels, and you have confidence in them. However, as I said before, so what we have done now increasingly is when you're doing first your syndicates, you may come to the point where you may decide to create an angel investment fund, okay? An angel investment fund. And there, you still have your subject matter experts, but you also have the people that go on the board, but you have an investment committee who is helping you with the due diligence, is helping you with the shareholder agreements, is helping you with the valuations. And even if you don't have a fund, then you still need to have that type of support, because that's another great thing about angel clubs and angel syndicates. Just like corporations, corporations have lawyers, they have analysts, they have financial people, they have subject matter experts. So an angel club brings all of that together, and then you, as the lead investor, and the lead investor is usually the person who is negotiating the valuation, who's negotiating the rights to make certain that when you're bought, that you get your due, or if you can stay if you want, or whatever. But she or he is always tapping into the experience and expertise of the angel syndicate.
Okay.
Okay?
Any other questions? One more.
Thank you. So do you place my name?
Hi.
Very well. I want you to explain further on bankruptcy loss. In my own opinion, if you're experiencing bankruptcy loss, that means you don't have enough funds to go further. But you mentioned when you were giving your presentation that you don't have to give up. You have to move forward, seek more opportunities. So what is the process of seeking more opportunities, getting funds to really go further? You're not giving up. You want to invest in more opportunities. So what is the process? Getting funds, or do you have to seek for loan or look for consortium to really move forward?
Okay, so very, very important question. First of all, and I mean, you would do this on anything. Angel investing is risky, all right? So what you must do is, first of all, you have to have a very clear understanding of what your own finances are in the present and in the future. And usually, things have changed. And here again, I'm throwing the book out the window, because people used to say to be an angel investor, you needed to have a net worth of about $1 million. You could perhaps plan on spending, $250K, over a certain time, etc. Tomi and I were speaking, saying that, and I think this is a very reasonable number, by the way, is that if you're spending, if 20K dollars is, let's say, 2% of your net worth and your net income or whatever, and then you invest that over 5 years, so that maybe you've invested 100K, that is good. But you don't want to invest it all in one company, okay? So here again then, that whole idea about the lead, follow, or get out of the way, or the syndicate is very important. So we're talking about discretionary money. We are talking about having that syndicate, which has the lead investor, the subject matter expert, but also has the valuation person, the finance guy, the cash flow person, the human resources person, all of those people, all of that combined knowledge. And then you also look at your portfolio and you say, all right, let's say you as a syndicate or you as a group, maybe you decided that in each year you're going to make, let's say, just to make it easy, 10 investments, okay? So 10 of those investments, you may think that will have a quick return 2 to 3 times. Then something that maybe you would give a return in 5 to 7 times. Then you have your subject sector differentiation. You have some in agriculture, some in energy, some in education, some in health. So you're spreading this out this way. This is very important because, the market, you never know what is going to happen with the market. And so then what will happen is, some of them will go very quickly, but something may happen and they'll die. But because you've invested in something that you thought 5 or 7 years down the road would bring money, then you're okay. And this idea and the sustainability, I come back to this, because what usually happens in angel groups is it goes like this. And that is because at the beginning, angel investing, it got started in 1999 in Europe. I understand that Africa actually has been doing it for centuries. But, what would happen usually is a group of angel investors would get together and they would put a fairly large amount of their money into one or two investments. And they wouldn't get their money back for like 10 to 12 years. And so, as a result, they couldn't invest anymore. And that's actually what happened to me. You've all heard the story about the serial entrepreneur who then says, okay, now I'm going to become an angel investor, or in my case, a venture capitalist. So I was being solicited by everybody to become a venture capitalist when I turned about 50. And so I said, okay, I've built 5 companies, I can now invest. And so I was asked by AXA, the largest insurance bank company in the world, by the French National Savings Bank, by the Bavarian German State Bank, to join with them in creating Sophia Venture Lab. So it was the first transporter venture capital investment fund in France and in Europe. I put a fairly substantial amount of money into that fund, thinking, okay, here I am with AXA, with Caisse de Dépôt, with the Bavarian State Bank, and me. We were, by the way, equal partners, right? So I come to my first board meeting, and I nearly fall over dead. None of them are investing their own hard money that they have earned. They were investing other people's money. And let me tell you, that is a very big difference. And I see everybody very much nodding their heads. It is, it is a life and death experience as far as I was concerned. The second is that they had no idea about entrepreneurial ventures. And so they were saying, oh, well, we'll kick out the entrepreneur and we'll bring in somebody new. I go, if you kick out the entrepreneur, that entrepreneur will die. Now let me tell you, this was a 10-year fund. So at the end, and at the end of 10 years, at this point I'd gotten 30% of my money, 30%. Thank God we extended the fund until the 12th year. And in the 12th year, we sold a company that we thought had almost gone bankrupt 4 times. And it allowed us to get 100% of our money back. We didn't make any money, but, and I used that money to then start investing again. Because I had used so much of it at the beginning, I couldn't invest. And so the recent investments that you see here with the satellites and everything, that is because finally it came back. But had I been smart, and had I started doing angel investing instead of venture capitalists who were not investing their own money, is the most important thing. So just to kind of,
Okay. I think we've had stories.
Yeah.
Once more, I'd like us to give Candace a warm round of applause. At this stage, we'll have a coffee break right outside there, in the sun, in the shade. So 15 minutes. Please network, form your syndicates there, or start.
Absolutely.
I will come back in 15 minutes. Thank you very much. So, can you imagine all these